Hey everyone, welcome back to the Trendcrusher podcast. Now, I'm really excited today because I've been looking forward to this interview for a while. And, when it finally happened, yeah, I can't describe it. So, to cut to the chase, I spoke to Bjorn Stride of Soilwork, and it was an honor to speak to him because I kind of grew up listening to Soilwork. Especially, I went through this melodic death metal phase when I first got into metal years ago. So it was just awesome to speak to him about their latest album, which is their 12th album, which is titled Övergivenheten. Yeah, had to look up the pronunciation for that one. But yeah, we spoke about that, the whole writing process, their melodic death metal sound, touring, and a lot more. So, you know what? I'm going to cut this intro here because I think it's a great chat and you should check it out. But
Hey, and I'm here with Bjorn from the mighty Soilwork. How's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. I just recently woke up, but I'm fine. I'm doing good. I'm happy to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks so much. I mean, it's such an honor to speak to you, and especially as someone who kind of grew up listening to a lot of the Soilwork albums. It's great just to get first of all, an advanced copy of your latest album. And I did check the pronunciation for this. I'm going to give it a shot. Let's see
Nice.
how good my Swedish pronunciation is. Your upcoming 12th album, which is titled Övergivenheten. No, let me take that again. Övergivenheten.
Övergivenheten.
Oh wow,
okay. Yeah, I know it's a tough one. we like to make it difficult for journalists.
Yeah.
Since we released Verkligheten. But yeah, Övergivenheten would be the best way of saying it. It's not an easy word.
Yeah, I can imagine even for Swedes. But for those of us who don't speak Swedish, it actually translates to the abandonment. And one thing you kind of mentioned already, it continues in your Swedish titles. So that's really cool. But how does it feel? I mean, you've kind of been on this prolific run for the last couple of years. So how does it feel now to have another album out in just a short span?
I mean, it feels really good. It feels... there was an EP that we released in between as well, Whisper the Atlantic, but that was sort of more of a, I guess, experiment. But to have a new album out now, I mean, the timing is pretty good. Things are opening up and we're able to tour again. But it's been interesting because we've been spreading out the recording sessions quite a bit for this new album, rather than just booking 6 weeks in the same studio and try to be focused the whole time. It's extremely hard, I would say. So I think with this, the fact that we spread out the recording sessions, we were able to give each and every song the attention they deserve, and to see that also shaping up to an album, I guess took a little bit of a longer time. But I think it was definitely a recipe that works for us, something that we will continue with, because you get like perspective to all the songs. You can go home and sort of shut that door for a while and then return and listen back and say, wow, this is what we recorded. Really? It's like, wow, this is amazing, and then even like, oh, I have an idea, that you wouldn't have come up with if you were living and breathing the same songs for like 6 weeks. I think that's been a good thing for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that the press note also mentioned, right? It was written and recorded over 3 sessions. And I think as just from a creative perspective, that gives you that sense of objectivity, what you were talking about also, you can kind of detach again in there. But I have to ask, and this is something that I've been speaking to some of the musicians in the last couple of years, is at which point do you realize that, this needs to stop, right? Because otherwise you can just keep tinkering and keep mixing or adding new elements in there.
Well, I mean, I guess we have some kind of a deadline somewhere, so we sort of like work towards a goal, even though we spread things out. We wanted to take our time, but like you said, you also need to put up some kind of a goal, otherwise it's just going to go crazy. I mean, we would have ended up adding too much crazy stuff and this and that in there. So I think
no, and it's true, right? Because having a deadline in any creative project is kind of important. So I think this kind of is there, and I'm glad at least what you also mentioned earlier, right? Like this also gives you a different perspective in the recording, in there where you know that, okay, this is something that you all can kind of replicate in the future. Now, I want to quickly talk about the album itself, right? Because one of the things you guys I've noticed and I love is that you guys don't care about like song lengths or album durations. I mean, a few releases ago, you all put out a double album, right? So it's kind of like anti what's going on right now, where everyone's focused on those shorter songs and things like that. Was that kind of in there weighing in your mind? And largely, actually, one of the main questions I wanted to ask you, which I can kind of focus on, is at which point do you realize that this song is, like, if I may use the term, Soilwork worthy, right? Like, what makes a song a Soilwork song?
Yeah, good question. I mean, how? I mean, yeah, I think you know that it's going to be a Soilwork song when you sit and write. You know, I get sort of in a sort of Soilwork mode, writing mode. You know, and so I think it's been quite easy for me to sort of. I also write songs for the Night Flight Orchestra, and that's like something completely different, at least in my head, you know. And so it's very easy for me to sort of switch between those bands, and you know. And I think so a Soilwork song, it's like it's something that has that, you know, there's a lot of things happening in the song, but it's also somehow controlled, and it's very sort of diverse, a lot of twists and turns, and a lot of dynamics, and like lots of like intensity, but also a lot of melody. Like obviously, I think that's the key, you know. And even on this album, it's quite intense and extreme at, you know, in many ways, but also melody definitely runs through this album, and it's some pretty big melodies too, I think. Some of the best that we ever created, I feel. You know, that's what they always say for the new album, but I didn't say that, you know, for the last album, so I'm gonna say it for this one. So yeah.
but if I may take the liberty, right, as a listener, one more thing I can add, because Soilwork is synonymous with the melody, but something I've noticed, and maybe you can shed more light on this, is as a listener, while the melody is there, it does leave you a bit melancholic. And is that something that you've noticed over a period of time? Is that something that's kind of added in there? Where does that come from? I'm very curious.
No, I think that's something that we had. I think when we started the band, I was really into, you know, the sort of, you know, Stockholm death and Gothenburg death metal scene, and whenever they had melodies, they were quite very. They sounded very Scandinavian, you know, like Scandinavian melancholy, and that's what really spoke to me. You know, you have an album like, you know, Dissection, Storm of the Light's Bane, which is one of the greatest albums ever made, if you ask me, and the melodies in that one, it's just that it's so like melancholic and kind of sad, but it's so uplifting and empowering somehow, you know. And I think that's something that I took with me, you know, when I started the band, and we especially had that in the beginning of our career. Then I feel that got lost a little bit in the middle of our career, you know, with albums like Stabbing the Drama and Sworn to Great Divide, and maybe Figure Number 5 as well. But that being said, those are great albums, you know, but I think they're more mixed up. They still have those elements, but they're also mixed up with more sort of American influences. Because we were touring a lot in America at the time, and I think later on we sort of returned to our roots a little bit without trying to rehash anything, because I mean, nobody can blame us for rehashing stuff, you know. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're staying relevant in the music scene as well. But it's something that we definitely wanted to bring back and even sort of, you know, develop even more, you know, the melancholic side, but that it still needs to be sort of beautiful and uplifting, you know. And I think we've definitely succeeded in doing that, both for Verkligheten and Övergivenheten.
Yeah, and I just want to talk a bit about the lyrics also, right? And especially since you talked about having that Soilwork mode and Night Flight Orchestra mode. when because you've primarily worked on the lyrics for this album, and I'm not going to take an attempt at saying it again, but you talked about the press note says your personal perception and experience, and you talked about like just your environment, and if you could just kind of dive into that for a bit and tell our listeners.
Yeah, I mean, it's been quite interesting because I mean my lyrics have been quite sort of introspective, but and sort of like socially realistic in many ways, and David's has been quite dark. He's been in a very dark place and still is, and whereas we're very close, and I think we've been on different planets the latest years, not musically, or like we're still very good friends and we communicate, but our lives are so different and our state of mind are so different, but I think we still managed to create some really interesting music, and it's hard for us to compose together.
Okay.
So we've always pretty much composed separately. Every now and then, there's some exceptions, and then when we bring it together, they're quite different, both lyrically and musically, but somehow they really work together, and it creates a really interesting contrast, and it's almost like an exchange where, he's really trying to escape reality, and he really wants to pull me with him, sort of, but I'm like, no, I'm staying down here, on the ground. I want to, be as close to reality as possible, and I'm fine, exchange, that and contrast that creates something very special, and I think you can definitely hear that on this album.
Okay, so I think that kind of makes sense now, just the amalgamation that you're talking about in there. Now, I'm very curious, and I love talking to most musicians about this, and especially when I get a chance to talk to someone like you, considering just the diverse music that you release, right? I mean, you've got Night Flight Orchestra, you've got Soilwork. I really loved, by the way, At the Movies, that entire double album. That was really cool. So, which brings me to my question. What are you currently listening to at the moment? Like, what do you listen to? Is it metal, non-metal?
It's really all over the place. I think I have to go to my playlist. Let's see. Hold on.
Sure, go for it.
It's always the hardest question somehow. Stranger Things. But yeah, I love Kate Bush. Don't get me wrong. I'm trying to. What am I listening to? King Sex. I never. Kind of recently discovered them somehow, which is kind of weird. But the Gretchen goes to Nebraska. It's really cool. Okay. There's also, what is this? I've been listening to this King Crimson album. What is it called? It's called. God damn it! It's not the same thing as when you bought physical records, is it? I'm trying. Yeah. It's already Crimson. Discipline.
Okay.
Yeah, Discipline. Yeah. To have that in my playlist. I'm trying to think of something metal. There is something that I've been listening to.
Is there anything recent you've been listening to? Any band that's kind of like caught your eye?
Let's see. I'm trying to think here. I don't want to be that boring guy who only listens to old music, I'm trying to keep up, there's so much things happening and so many bands, but that's cool, of course.
I don't blame you. Like sometimes I think that's one thing in the last couple of years is that we've found like comfort in music that's familiar to us and sounds that are familiar to us. So I totally understand.
Yeah. I've returned to Covenant by Morbid Angel as well.
Nice.
I think I like that album more than Blessed Are the Sick.
Oh
I don't know.
wow,
Yeah.
that's an interesting thing, because yeah, that actually divides a lot of people.
Yeah, I guess it does. Yeah.
Yeah, but
I mean, I like Blister the Sick as well, but yeah,
yeah,
maybe
I
it's the
don't.
production or something. I don't know. It's like it's so, and yeah, the solos are mixed so incredibly high on Blister the Sick
Yeah,
that it's like
that's
takes
true.
over the whole. I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, like, I noticed you're next week actually you're playing a couple of festivals and stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, are you looking forward to that? What's that going to be like? Because I'm sure, like with festival sets, it's going to be very different. You have to play like the popular songs or the ones that people are looking forward to, also, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's we have to squeeze everything in because we normally don't have like a set length of more than 1 hour, so that makes it even harder, and it's a festival. Then it's more like there's going to be people there who's maybe never heard the band live or don't even know about the band. So what do you do? I feel as well that we want to focus on the later albums in a way, but you also want to give the die hard fans something. So we try to throw something in there, but also to promote the latest album and maybe focus on the previous two. So it's a tough balance.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough,
Yeah.
right? And especially with a band like a discography like yours, you
Yeah.
you can't really please everyone, because there's always going to be somebody who
No.
says that they didn't play my
Yeah.
favorite song.
Exactly. It's like, damn you didn't play whatever. Yeah. Chain Heart Machine, you bastards. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, and you're actually doing Australian tour in November.
Yeah.
I noticed that you guys do a lot of touring in there. What's one of your favorite things about Australia?
I don't know, the vibe. It's just I love people there. I like the vibe. I don't mind traveling. I mean, we're flying every day, we're playing every
Wow.
day, flying every day. And if that was in Europe, I would have shut myself because it's just it's the check-in, in Australia is just so brilliant as well. You just go to group check-in, it's smooth, no lines. And here this summer doing festivals in Europe, and it's Stockholm, the lines at the airport, I've never seen anything like it. It's like you have to get up like 2 a.m, to go to the airport, and then
I mean,
with no sleep, and yeah,
I'm
it's
guessing it's
quite
a lot
crazy.
of that revenge travel that people are talking about, right? Like everyone's
Yeah,
getting out.
revenge travel. Yeah. That's I haven't heard that expression, but that's correct. Yes. But
Okay.
anyways, back to Australia. No, I mean, we've been there. I think this is going to be the 9th time, and I love returning there. I love the weather. There's just, I don't know, it's something special, and I just love traveling through Australia and listen to Australian music, and then you understand why it sounds the way it do, or it does. It's like I love Crowded House, for example. It's
Nice.
some great songwriting, really, and just looking out the window, sitting on the flight, looking out, and drink a Cooper or whatever, and listen to Crowded House. It's it's one of the greatest things in the world. I love it,
Awesome.
and the shows are really good too, intense, and yeah,
Awesome. So
people
that's
are very friendly, I would say. So
yeah. So that's definitely something for the Australian listeners to look forward to. Now, I have a
yeah,
couple of
yeah,
questions to line up, and I know I just want to be mindful of time. So this is actually the last question for the video,
yeah,
which is, and I know it's tough, especially at a time like what we've been through in the last couple of years, but I just want to kind
yeah.
of put you on the spot. Is 27 years, 12 albums, I don't know how many EPs, demos, and everything, but what's next for Soilwork?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, I think it's really hard to say. I mean, now we're just sort of happy that we are, keep on releasing really interesting music that is making sense, and that we feel, is worth something for us, and that people really, have grown to love the fact that we will always come to surprise people for each and every release. that we constantly evolve, and just gonna be back on the road again. Is there any point anymore? What is this? This is crazy. Now we're out there again. I think we're just trying to enjoy it, and I think for now and see what happens. It's of course we have plans of touring and stuff, but I don't think we have any sort of strategic goals or anything like that. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to
Yeah,
that.
totally understand. But thanks so much for speaking to me, Bjorn. I totally appreciate it. It's been
Thank
great
you. Thanks for
having a
having
chat,
me.
and thanks for talking about the album.
Yeah, thank you. I enjoyed it.
Okay.
And that was Bjorn. Man, what a fucking awesome conversation. As you can tell, I was really excited to speak to him. And yeah, I kind of had to like really curtail my fanboying. But it's always great to speak to one of the bands that you really grew up listening to and just kind of understanding the entire process behind their music, right? So, really, one of the interviews I've been really looking forward to, as you could tell. And a lot more lined up over the next few weeks. Now, if you want to be featured on the podcast, all my details are in the show notes. So just check the show notes for that. And yeah, get in touch, send me an email, hit me up on social media, and we'll take it from there. And that's all for this episode. I'll see you guys next week. Cheers.